So I don't know if all of you have been on a boat, but it can be super fun if you don't get sick. I've been on a boat a few times. I didn't get sick. Gavin, how about you? You've been on a boat?
I have, but sometimes, since we live in a desert, there's really not much water around, so to kind of help that, I get my tub and I fill the tub with water and I get a little toy boat and I just float it around to pretend like I'm riding it.
Oh.
I'm kidding, I don't do that. But yeah, I've been on a boat before, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it's pretty
I don't
fun.
get sick, but sickness on a boat is horrible.
Yeah, it can be. Like, I've heard stories. It hasn't happened to me, but I've heard about that. Well, our Bible story today is one of the most famous boat stories and famous Bible stories. It's about Noah and the giant boat that God had him and his family make. So the story behind this is we've talked about how Adam and Eve, first humans, they didn't trust God. God still had a rescue plan. Well, years later, the world just gets worse. There's lots of humans on the planet, and none of them are really trusting God. None of them are really doing anything right. So God says, it's gotten so bad, I'm gonna send a flood to just wipe out all of humanity. Like, this is really serious. Seems harsh, but it must have been so bad. That's why God was like, there's no one doing the right thing or trusting me, except there was this one guy and his family. There's this guy named Noah. So he tells Noah, I want you to build this giant boat. We call it, an ark, Noah's Ark. And then of course, do you remember what Noah had to do to fill the ark with?
Yeah, God told him to get a pair of each animal that was on the planet, right? To get on the ark?
Correct.
Something like that?
That's right. 2 of every kind of living creature. That was probably a lot of work, and it was
really smelly.
Really stinky in that boat. But Noah obeyed. Again, he was one of the good guys, and so he and his family got on the boat, got all the animals on the boat, and God actually shut the door
Oh, good for
of
him.
the boat. And so none of the people on the earth were like, they were, when Noah was like, hey, God's gonna flood the earth, they're like, no. Nobody believed him. Like, what is rain? What are you talking about, Noah? Well, long story short, it happened.
Oh.
Yeah, the floodgates opened up, rain fell, so water covered the earth at that time, and Noah and his family were all that was left. Finally, after 40 days or whatnot at sea, finally the water started to subside. The boat landed on a mountain, and they were the family that started over. But yeah, it's a crazy, wild story that you should read for sure. It's like Genesis 6 through 9 is kind of the whole story. But in chapter 9 and verse 16, here's the key verse I want us to land on today and talk about. This is God making a promise to Noah. And here's what he says. He says, whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth. So this is Noah actually saying, whenever I see that rainbow, so whenever you see a rainbow in the sky, it reminds us of this promise, this covenant that God has made between himself and all living creatures, that I will never again flood the earth. I will never destroy the earth in this way. And when God makes a promise, he keeps that promise.
Yeah, that's good. And then I know covenant, you said it was kind of like a promise, but what was that promise exactly that God gave Noah?
Well, yeah, so a covenant, there's different kinds of covenants in the Bible. Covenant is a very special word that sometimes is confusing to understand. Like it's a promise, but it's like a really special promise. It's almost like a legal contract that in the ancient world would be like, kind of like if you made a covenant, was 2 families made a covenant together, they'd basically be saying like, everything I have is now yours and everything that you have is now mine. That would be kind of different kinds of covenants, but one of them. And so God was basically making a covenant with humans through Noah, just saying, hey, what just happened? I will never do that again. And so I'm always going to keep my promise. Here's this rainbow in the sky. So here's the thing. It kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, is God always having a plan, because human beings, once again, they were just doing evil and messing up the world that he's given us. But God had a plan, a rescue plan. And so he sent the flood, and he had Noah build the boat to rescue Noah and his family to start over. And then the rainbow is the evidence of that promise, that covenant, that, hey, I'm not going to flood the earth again, but I will always be with you. I will always be taking care of you. That's God's promise, God's covenant. So God always has a plan, and this story keeps showing that.
That's great. Well, then let's quickly summarize, see if I get what you're saying. That, we had Adam and Eve, and then there was darkness over the earth, and then God was like, oh, people that I created aren't doing the good things I want them to do. So then he sends a flood, but he finds this righteous person, this righteous family, Noah, and he has them gather all the pairs of creatures on the planet to get on the ark to save them as well. Then the floods came down, and God promised Noah to never, and promised us too, to never flood the earth again by a rainbow. So I assume a covenant with God is pretty important.
Yeah, it's binding, it's forever. And like our covenant with Jesus, we call it the new covenant, and that is something that lasts forever. When you decide to follow Jesus, when you trust God by following Jesus, giving your life to Jesus, that's a binding covenant forever. That he's given you a new life, and that's why we don't have to fear death, is because that new life with Jesus lasts even beyond death forever. So it's exciting. So we just need to continue to trust God, trust Jesus, and know that God always has a plan. You guys are going to talk more about this in your groups right now. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.